Hey, welcome everybody. John Farmakas. I am the moderator tonight, so thank you all so much for coming. This is the inaugural Williams 78 Connect program. Thank you all for joining tonight's event. We had 65 classmates register for tonight, so we're pretty excited with that turnout. First off, I trust that you and your families are healthy, safe, and well, given the crazy times that we're certainly living through. Second, we're all using Zoom tonight, and I know you may be tired of Zoom or Zoom bombing, but backgrounds and all the other things, but I don't know about you, but internet traffic on the web has been crazy, so hopefully we don't freeze, we don't drop, but whatever, we'll all be there, fingers crossed. Third, we will be recording tonight's session. We wanted to make it available to all the classmates afterwards that couldn't be here as well. Some of you had asked me how we came up with the idea of 78 Connect. It all started back in February. I had a call with Kate Stone Lombardi. And so Kate and I were talking about, this is pre-pandemic days. So we were talking about, I was asking Kate about her career. And she had, was talking about her profession, her family, and her class secretary work. But she's talking about her volunteer experience and that she was actually going and teaching in prisons. I'm like, oh my gosh. And the stories and the amazing impact that it made not only to her life, but to others. I said, Kate, we've got to share this story with others. We also talked about the wonderful times it is when we're back at college reunions, the huge turnout we have when we have our class speakers at those events, reading the informative class notes, so keep them coming. We really appreciate it. The mini reunions that are held in Boston and New York, they're great. And so we really enjoy those, but we all thought, how do we get together as classmates, share ideas, stories, careers, life experiences, helping each other in the Williams community. I've been a big Zoom user, so we said, let's put it together. So here we go. I also want to thank our class officers. They've been a big supporter of this program. Also, Ashley Weeks-Cart. Hey, Ashley. Many of you know Ashley from the reunions. She's on the call tonight from Williamstown. Ashley is our Deputy Director of Alumni Relations and also Director of all classes and reunions. So she has helped us in past reunions, and I know she'll help us in the many more reunions we have in the future. And Juan Benya, who is everything digital and virtual these days in Williamstown. So he is Mr. Zoom and really helping to put this together. So thank you both. So the objectives of the program really are, we're going to start it out with the event tonight. We have two, as you know, planned in June and July. We'll take a break in August, and based on your feedback, we'll keep them going. The whole idea is to keep these informative, interactive, and fun. And we really want to touch on a range of topic speakers to really address the diverse interest of the class, but also touch on the great experiences that many of our classmates have had. As you saw in the recent note from Kate, Tim Layden will be speaking on June 25th about getting the professional and collegiate sports back online. And then John Winkelman, our famous sleep doctor, has some great background studies on sleep. And many of you were at the last reunion. It was standing room only. So we look forward to that. So tonight's session is really focused on teaching in prisons. How our three classmates who are extremely busy in their own careers, in their own ways, volunteer their own time to give back in such unique ways. So the format that we're going to use tonight, I am going to ask a series of questions of the group. We'll plan on 20, 30 minutes of the Q&A. Then we'll open up the lines, take everybody off of mute, and allow you to ask any questions, comments back, and we'll wrap up at 9 o'clock or earlier, and we keep the lines going just to chat with the group. So thanks for everybody for joining. So help me in welcoming our panelists tonight. John Bedford-Lloyd, Kate Stone Lombardi, and Todd Eckerson. I appreciate the three of you being on tonight. So with that, I will ask the first question, and then John, Kate, and then Todd will answer, and then we'll go for the next question. So, so with that, let me ask our panelists, how are each of you and your family doing during these crazy pandemic times? And what is your normal 9 to 5, if there's anything such as 9 to 5? What's your 9 to 5 professional career today? John?
Hi, John. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, there, John?
Normal. That's not a word I use anymore. Is this working, John? Everything good?
Yeah, we got you.
Good.
Yeah.
So
I hear you.
After a short, after a short but intense struggle with a 20-a-day Oreo problem, which I handled sometime in the beginning of April, we were okay. We're very lucky. Everybody in my family directly, everybody is okay. Mostly just very lucky that indirect association with the bad stuff, but nothing directly. 3 weeks ago, our oldest daughter had her second son. So we all kept very separate for 6 or 7 weeks in preparation for that. So the two closed systems merged, and we were able to hang out. She lives about 15 minutes away. No distancing. We can, in the words of her pediatrician, we can hold and we can help and we can be there. So we also get her older son, who's 3.5, 4 days a week for a few hours, which is a wonderful gift. Work, show business is dead. However, I have a sound studio that I put together in the attic, so I'm able to do audiobooks, and thank God. And that's my story right now, guys.
Oh, that's great, John. Glad you're healthy and well, and thank you for all the good things you're doing at home and on the theater sets and everything else. So, how about you, Kate? I know you're busy on a lot of fronts.
Yeah, I mean, I live in a New York suburb that's been pretty hard hit by COVID. So we're on either, I can't remember if it's week 10 or 11. I totally lost track of this. We are also lucky, nobody very close to us sick. But I'm very jealous of John because my kids are both on the West Coast. I have a 96-year-old mom I just saw for the first time. So it's just been, it's been hard, but you know, we're lucky. Just to follow up on John, I think part of also what we wanted to do was to bring the, it's not so much like, oh gosh, you know, we're doing such amazing things or whatever. It's just a way for the class to be connected in a different way than the 5-minute cocktails at you know, reunion. That we wanted to bring folks together who weren't always that involved with Williams, and we thought this would be a fun and kind of interesting way to do it. Professionally, I am a recovering journalist, I'd say. You think that acting is dead? Well, there's like the budgets for print. I was a print journalist, so I wrote for the New York Times for more than 20 years, and I had a column for 8. And then I could see the writing on the wall in terms of where the paper just kept contracting and contracting, and everyone was taking buyouts. And yeah, so I wrote a book on mothers and sons that came out in 2012, and now I freelance like every other old journalist that I know. So, you know, I've written from everything from Wall Street Journal and Time.com to like super obscure websites for baby boomers. Anyone wants to pay me, I will write it. So that's about it for me.
Oh, thanks, Kate. And thanks for all the work you're doing as class secretary too. So,
My pleasure.
and how about Todd?
Yeah, we're all hunkered down here in Simsbury, also the home of Tim Layden and Mario Chiappetti. 3 of the 5 kids are here. They're crawling the walls. And I'm here in the classroom teaching at Westminster. Tomorrow's the last day of classes.
In person?
Oh, it's on via, online. Sorry, Zoom.
God bless Zoom. Well, that's great. Welcome. Hopefully you get the kids out and everybody's safe, ready to go. Well, thank you, Todd. So let me ask the next question of the group. So, you know, what drew you into this very specialized work? I know most people don't think of prisons as kind of the place to spend time or volunteer time. So what drew you to inmates in prisons? John, you want to start out?
Sure, John. About 14 years ago, I was asked by a friend of mine who is a teacher. She was doing a literary class in prison, a place called Green Haven Correctional Facility. It's a maximum security prison in Stormville, New York. It's one of 5 facilities that RTA, it's called Rehabilitation Through the Arts. They handle 5 different prisons, 3 max, 2 medium. go online, check out RTA, Rehabilitation Through the Arts, see what they're up to. It's extraordinary in New York State. That's what Kate's, the organization Kate's with as well. So I went in there on a one-off to help this friend of mine work with these guys. They were doing first-person narratives, and she knew I was an actor, so I went in, did some work with them. Was on my way out the door, and one of the guys tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Would you start an RTA program here?" And RTA was already in Sing Sing, started there in 1996. They'd heard about it. So I had only one word came out of my mouth, and that was yes. So that was about 14 years ago. And so since then, we do full-length plays in a 700-seat theater at the maximum security prison. We started with August Wilson's Jitney. Then we did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Then we did Macbeth. Then we did William Saroyan's Time of Your Life, 2 musicals that I did not do, and then 2 other plays that the guys wrote themselves. The reason to go into prison is to find out that every cliche is wrong. That's the best reason to go in. And I could talk for about an hour more, but that's all we've got. So it's back to you, John.
Wow, those inmates are blessed to have you as a mentor and as a friend and someone to assist and help them during difficult times. Thank you, John, for that. Kate, what drew you in?
You know, I have 2 answers to that. I'll try and keep them short. When you want to work in a prison, you have to go through a lot of hoops. You have to get, security takes almost a year to go through with the Department of Corrections. You go for a variety of screenings and interviews and everything. But my first interview was with RTA, this group that John and I work for. And it was Craig John, the former director. And I went to meet with him, and I was feeling pretty like, I wrote for the New York Times, and here's my resume, and here are my lesson plans, which I had all planned out. And I tried to give it to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm really not interested in that. Why do you want to teach in a prison?" I'm like, well, I think that writing can be very therapeutic, and I've always kept a journal, and I feel like writing. And he's like, "Yeah, you're not a therapist. You're not trained. That's not what we do. Why are you here?" I'm like, oh my God. So, eventually he kind of lightened up and said, "Look, there's a reason everyone is attracted to this work. And you just have to figure out what yours is. I have one, you have one." And I think, and he goes, "The whole point is you can't be working out your stuff on this population. These guys are not here to heal whatever ails you." So I got what he was saying. And I think over time, I figured it out. And it has something to do with really, as different as my background is from most of the men that I teach, I think I always had a sense of kind of powerlessness and the need to have a voice. And that was something that I wanted to impart. So I think that's what really draws me to the work. But also part 2 is just, I'd covered prisons a lot for the New York Times. There's a lot of prisons in Westchester. I'd written about Bedford Hills and Sing Sing. I'd written about RTA. I'd gone to a few shows. So an old friend of mine asked me if I wanted to teach with her. And she just happened to get me at a moment where I didn't have that much work. I'd had a bad year as mourning both my father and my brother, anyway. And I'm like, yeah, I want to think about something else. And I did. And boy, do I think about other things. And I'm sure John will back this up. This isn't what we bring to these men. It's a lot more about what these men bring to us, or at least equal. Todd, I don't know how you feel about it, but.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely
Thanks,
right.
Kate. Todd, wow, that's a tough one. Yeah, tough 2 to follow, man. Unbelievable. How'd you end up
really
in this volunteer role?
Well, I've always been intrigued. The game changer for me was learning more about mass incarceration. If you've ever read The New Jim Crow, Michelle Alexander, I think, is a genius, because she starts by saying, I was a little skeptical, and then she starts getting into the numbers and the numbers and the numbers and the numbers. And I think she's a genius for a lot of reasons, but that's exactly where I was. This mass incarceration, really? But then by the end of the book, you go, yes, really. In any case, I was intrigued. I know Wesleyan had a program, and I tried to get an entree in there, and they weren't interested. And then, unbeknownst to me, one of my former students, Dr. Erin Corbett, started her own nonprofit, Second Chance Educational Alliance in Hartford, and she has tried to bring higher education into the prison system, at least, and she's made great strides until this lockdown. She's my hero. So I was lucky. The former student is now the teacher.
Wow. Very telling. You're right. Very difficult times in prisons, given all the, issues that we're going through right now with the coronavirus issues. So, well, amazing. So I know, John, you actually touched on some of this, but, maybe if each of you could just talk briefly about some of the specific teaching and work that you actually do. How much time do you spend, while you're doing that? So each are probably slightly different based on the individuals or the groups. John, I know you talked briefly too about the kind of work that you're doing in the prisons.
Yeah. We started out with the basics, improv and scene study, theater games, stretching exercises, vocal warm-ups, letting the guys be aware of how they present themselves vocally, physically. So when they, to the point where we say, okay, stand in front of the class and tell me a story. They fidget, they put their hands in their pockets, they're scratching their neck, and everybody sees it. We all see it. It's all done with a great sense of humor. These are called, you all probably know, they're soft skills, which are huge. A lot of these guys need those more than anything to be able to stand and deliver in the most simple circumstances. We work in scene classes, and then my personal favorite thing to do, which I've been lucky enough to do in there for about 12 plus years, is actually work on plays, brilliant plays. So everything comes from the text. So these guys, it's a chance, it's English class, it's dramaturgical class, it's acting, it's gymnastic class, it's dance. These guys get a chance to open up in a way that they never, ever have. And they'll say, dozens and dozens of guys have said, when I walk into this class, the mask that I wear every day is off. And they say things like that all the time. They know that when they come through the door of that class, they're not in prison anymore. Now, those words are said by many, many of the men. We are not in prison when we are in this class. We get to play, we get to create. We are much more worthy in this class, and that rubs off. That rubs off on them, all their peers, and especially after shows, when the whole population sees them, that self-worth goes back into the hallways, goes back to the block, and it spreads around. And the culture in that prison has changed remarkably in the 14 years since we've been working in there.
Wow. So yeah, self-worth, self-esteem. There's so many things that you could say, how do you gain that back in a prison? That's amazing how you've been able to do that, hands-on kind of work. Great job there. Kate, how about you?
So I teach memoir, and I taught it up at Greenhaven, where John and I, we literally teach the same men. And then I was teaching it at Sing Sing up until COVID. So both male maximum security prisons. John, I was going to mention the masks too. These guys wear masks, and not the physical COVID kind, but they are so self-protected. And to teach memoir in a maximum security prison is really tough, because it's sometimes can be quite literally unsafe for them to make themselves vulnerable. They have to keep, tough and just showing nothing to stay safe. And yet here I am in class asking them to be vulnerable, and they're sharing their most tender moments and memories, and writing about their families and writing about their dreams. It takes enormous courage to take a memoir class in a prison. It helps we don't have any correction officers in the room. That's helpful for them, actually for me too. The way we do it is I kind of have a standard class where we first go in and do like a physical warm-up, because you don't know where these men have come from on a particular day in prison and what's happened to them. So we kind of mentally get in the classroom. We've done Tai Chi, we've done yoga, and all sorts of word games. Then they share their homework, give them homework. And then I read from a published memoir. And we've read, so many different authors. And then I'll draw a prompt from that memoir. So I read them from Dreams from My Father, Barack Obama's early autobiography memoir. And I read the scene when he's a young man, he's living in the city, and he gets a call from Kenya that his father had died. I read it, and then and I said, write about a moment where you got some news. It might have been a phone call, it might have been a text, it might have been a letter, whatever. You got news that changed your life. Go. And for 25 minutes, I remember the first class, I was just astounded. They're working at this crappy metal scratched up table and just 25 minutes. I forgot to mention, I also give them a writing lesson in there, either grammar or just how to write memoir, use your senses, set the scene, that kind of thing. It's mind blowing. One thing is that we don't ask them about their crimes. It's easy to find out. You can look it up online. I don't want to know. It has happened over time that they begin to write about their crimes because of prompts, and if that happens, fine, but that's not why we're there either.
Yeah. Wow. Very personalized, very touching on that. Amazing. Thanks, Kate. Todd, how about yourself?
Okay, I just want to make a comment. It takes courage for the guys to do it, but it takes a lot of courage to teach a class in memoir. I can't even imagine teaching a class in memoir writing there. But I teach at 2 correctional institutions. One's Willard Cybulski up in Enfield. It's a reintegration center, level 1, I guess. And then the other is McDougall Walker up in Suffield. And that's a level 4-5 high and maximum security. And I basically teach a great books course. We start with Homer and the Iliad and go all the way through the Stoics, Pascal, Nietzsche, Dostoevsky, and I've been getting pushed lately to widen the curriculum. So we're working on that as well. So sometimes it's a bit hard. Western civilization is a bit under siege at the moment, but so it's led to some very interesting exchanges. But like both John and Kate said, it's what they bring to the table is amazing.
Unbelievable. Well, one thing I know, I was not in your English classes or history class at Williams, but wow, you're obviously a lot more well-read than I do. So congrats there, Todd. Great ways of educating and sharing ideas. Okay, so last question for the group, just keeping we're on time. But if there was, tell us about one special event or one unique experience that you've had that either you've imparted on one of your inmates, in the prison, or something that you've taken away personally, a story that you feel like sharing. And then we'll wrap up and we'll open up for Q&As after that. John?
Okay, there was a guy, we're going to call him Dino. We're going to pretend his name is Dino. He was in the yard a lot. And if you're in the yard a lot in a maximum security prison, it means you're not in programs, you're not in classes, you're in the yard. And sometimes things happen in the yard that aren't good. So let's just say he wasn't using his time really well. And what happens with RTA is a guy in class will reach out to a guy who they think could benefit or could bring something to the group. And it's an incredible self-policing process. So the steering committee, or the guys who bring these guys in, deserve an enormous amount of credit for maintaining the quality of the group. It's extraordinary. So Dino comes in. Now I'm 6'5", 230. Dino made me look small. Dino was very quiet. Dino did not talk. Dino might not have wanted to have been there. So it's a very calm environment. People come in a way, they approach the work the way at their own speed. So we wanted Dino to participate, basically. So the next play we were doing was Macbeth. And I looked around the room and I went, Jesus, I don't know if we've got a Macbeth, because these are full productions done, 2-hour full productions. It's Shakespeare, the real thing, not the translated stuff. It's in verse. So we're going around in a circle. Everybody's got the script. And I said to Dino, Dino, would you do this next monologue? And Dino, who has said 9 words up to that point in 3 or 4 weeks, takes the script and starts to read the speech that goes roughly, if it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. If the assassination could trammel up, et cetera, et cetera. This guy, he's got a voice that comes from the bottom of his feet. And in that moment, I was frozen. The whole class, all of his peers were frozen. And we went, holy shit, what just happened? This is magic. He knew it too, but he was so still closed down that he wasn't even going to let on that he knew what had just happened. And this was an absolute happenstance that this guy was sitting in that chair when we were going to do this play. Well, of course, he did Macbeth, and everybody watching him, that was the class. I could have just stood there like a potted plant. He showed everybody what RTA is about because of how hard he worked and what he did. And I saw him at Sing Sing. He was in 12th Night at Sing Sing. He's there now. And I saw a production there. It's an extraordinary transformation. So he is a great, I'm a great fan of Dino.
Wow. Here's the Dino, and great story, John, and unbelievable. You know, and I know you and I had pretty good. We can talk a bit, but to have you be tongue-tied and just kind of at awe at what somebody's done is pretty amazing. So great job there. Thank you so much. Kate, how about you?
Well, so I'm not 6'4", and it is, obviously part of me going into a men's prison is a cultural, sociological divide, okay? I'm a white woman in my 60s, and my class is all men of color, well, except for one guy who came in second semester. So, the question is like, how do I deal with that? The story I'll tell you is how I ended up dealing with it, but it ended up being a very happy teaching story for me. So I'd given them a homework assignment, which was, and by the way, there are about between 16 and 18 men in my class at any given time. So the assignment was write a sketch of yourself at age 5, at age 15, and now. So, okay, so they did, they handed their homework. So I'm home, and now picture I live in a nice suburban house in suburban Westchester, and I'm in my little green warm couch and I'm reading. And I did get permission, John, to read this excerpt. So there was a guy in my class who we will call James. And this is, they were all the same at 5. I was a cute little nappy-headed fellow, whatever. But this is what he writes about 15. He writes, 10 years down the line, I was being groomed by them mean old streets of Brooklyn, ready to make my bones. Black rain was in the making, and when you played in the rain, you were bound to get wet. Amongst my street dwellers, I was known as the animal doctor, taking care of the black bulldogs, the pythons, and later the Arabian birds. So I'm reading this going, what the? I have absolutely no idea what this is about. And I'm thinking, like, I hope James didn't hurt animals. I was clueless. So I went back to the next class and I said, James, can I read part of your homework out loud? Because I want to discuss it. So I read it out loud. And I said, look, this could just be James being James, because he has a very poetic way of expressing everything. Or it could be street language, which is like totally going over my head. Well, the whole class is laughing at me. And it turns out like black rain is bullets, and you're going to get wet means you're going to bleed, and making your bones is a murder, and you know, the animals were all guns. They were all makes of guns, right? So they're all laughing at me. I go, okay, fine, I didn't know this. But the question is, like, for purposes of memoir, let's talk about language and let's talk about audience. Like, I thought your story was poetic. I loved the language, but I didn't understand what you were trying to tell me. And so a discussion ensues. And I said, I'm not saying that you shouldn't write it that way. I don't know. What do you guys think? And the whole class was weighing in. And one guy goes, yeah, you got to explain it to her, James. Put it in parentheses. I'm like, no, don't put it in parentheses. That's going to break up the whole rhythm of the piece. And someone else said, no, we're writing for our peers. Leave it exactly as it is. Another guy's like, no, we want people to hear our voices. And if people can't understand. So anyway, it was a really good discussion. And then another guy goes, what's the problem? Let's just use glossaries for these people. So the next week, I'm reading James' homework, and he's writing, and he goes, and I was hanging in the hood. And then there's a footnote says, neighborhood, often urban and impoverished. I'm like, thank you, James. I actually knew what the hood was, but I appreciate it. But it's only by really talking and admitting I'm clueless, not clueless, because they called me school marm. They appreciated the lessons. I'm not clueless about writing or teaching writing, but I can't pretend to understand these lives. So all that said, that was my favorite thing that happened to me. My second favorite story was a guy who we will call Moomin. And he told me, I just have all three of my daughters writing journals now. I've been telling them how important it is to look at your life. And that to me was just huge to hear that story. So.
Wow. That was good. Barrett, thank you, Kate. That was unbelievable. What a way to learn lessons, right? It comes right back at you. So how impactful. Todd, how about you?
You got to unmute him, John.
Oh yeah, you're on mute. No, he's on mute.
Yeah, I'm going to read a short excerpt. My classroom light went off. From a newspaper article, and Kate and John, I don't know how they got permission to use this gentleman's name, or they even have his picture in here. I had to call my director today. But I think Kate and John, especially this first line, this is what you guys are providing. The article says the classrooms at McDougall Walker are safe spaces for inmates to explore weighty concepts and to unravel the traumas of their past and build a foundation for healing. Abraham, we'll call him, said, it helps you regain your humanity. I love school now. I love memoir writing. I love the theater. I love school now. I wish I loved it 30 years ago or 40 years ago. Abraham credits his college coursework with giving him a sense of purpose. The Second Chance Education Alliance work, he said, is giving him a framework to understand his past, look toward his future. He goes on to say, I don't know if I'll ever be fully healed, but I started on that road. Abraham's eligible for parole in 2022. The latest he'll be released is 2024. And chief among his goals is, in the interim, is finishing his associate's degree, showing his children and family that they didn't waste their time or love believing in him all the years he's been physically absent from their day-to-day lives. And this last line, it proves, Abraham says, I didn't have to be thrown away. I can be redeemed.
Wow. Wow. That's very, very impactful. Whew, gets emotional.
Yeah, glad I made it.
I can see it. Yeah, I know. I can see the emotion there. Well, listen, thank you, each of you, and for, again, all the time. We had done obviously some preparation for this, but I hadn't heard most of those stories. So God bless you for that. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to unmute. I know Chuck Sanders has the first hand up, so I'm going to unmute all the lines. So you're all going to be live. I'd rather make it open up to the class. So I'm going to unmute everybody, and there we go. So everybody, we're all live. Whoop. So okay. Chuck, I'm going to I'm going to have you go first because you have your hand up.
Cool, I do. Hey, actually, my question goes to something that both Todd and Kate touched upon, and that's family. And with the interactions as far as with your students, you communicate how they usually have masks when they're within the facility because they really don't want to let people know as far as their feelings because of various concerns. However, both of you have touched upon, and I'd like to know, how have your classes helped your students be able to relate and communicate as far as with their family members? Because that's an important aspect as far as while they're incarcerated, to have those relationships, and whether being able to open up and reach out, whether that has had an impact as far as for them with their family.
You want to take that one, Todd or Kate?
Wait a minute, John, I think you have to mute people who are listening because there's a lot of noise. Like, can you just unmute while people are talking?
Yes, I'm gonna mute everybody. Who wants to go first? Kate?
Todd, go ahead.
Yeah, family's the lifeline. In my role,
Just that.
I think the closest we get to the family is writing recommendations for court appearances and that sort of thing. But clearly family's key. And it's their lifeline, as I said, and source of hope. I don't know if that answers your question.
It sounds like there's a sea monster somewhere. You guys hear that kind of big slurping noise?
It's a car.
Yeah, if
Anyway.
everybody just wants to mute themselves, that would be great. But if anybody has any questions, you can raise your hand on that, and/or I'll just we'll just keep going. Kate, did you want to
Well,
respond to that?
I mean, I think John probably sees more families than we do. Recently, they've been able to open up some of the productions that they do to prison families. But yeah, like it's really nice. Like, I mean, I'm always hearing, like, I was telling my sister about you and my mother wants to meet you. And when I get out of here, we're going to do it. I mean, I think that they talk about class with their family. They share what they've written with their family. And, you know, I feel like any kind of, especially with memoir, you're looking at yourself, you're looking at your memories, you're looking at your family, and you're coming to terms with some of what you did. A lot of the writing I see is about how badly they feel about what they've done to their families. So, you know, I think it helps. I think it helps, but I have no direct contact, except for one guy told me that he had his mother buy my book on mothers and sons, which was really oh,
That's a great one. Oh, thanks. Great. Chuck, great question. Any other questions from classmates out there? I mean, we still got a great group out there, so.
Sue's Tread's raising her hand.
Hi. Did that come through? John,
Yeah.
am I unmuted? Thank you. John, I'm based on my experience with teens in my former practice, I know that sexuality and identification can be a challenge. And I would think that when you were talking about the masks in prison, that might be even ramped up more. Could you talk a little bit about how you cast the female parts in the plays that you do?
Sure. They're volunteers. They are women. They are some professional actors, some amateur actresses, and they come in and they rehearse off-site as best they can, learn their lines off-site. And so they are women who know the program, love the program, and that's what we do. So there is not it happened once at a facility, a median facility, Woodburn. They did Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Mm-hmm. And a guy that we'll call Nate played Ma Rainey. And he was fearless. These guys are all fearless, but he was really fearless. I did not see it. I only heard about it. It may happen, but while we're on that, so there's not that issue. I mean, the steering committee makes very clear to everybody, all the guys coming in, if you even look cross-eyed at somebody who comes in here, volunteer, or anybody else who's gay or who's questioning, you are out the door in 10 seconds. That's very, very, very clear to this group. The other thing I gotta say this before we go any further. Remember, every single prison in this country is locked down. Wrong terminology. Is closed to visitors and to volunteers. So I want to ask anybody who's listening right now, we just collected about 4,000 bars of soap for the women's prison in Bedford Hills, which is just down the road, because the lye-based soap makes their hands bleed. So you can't get in there. You can't get in. Our programs are all shut down. So any facility in your area, if you should feel so inclined, find out what they'll take. If it's medium or minimum, they might take skin cream. They'll probably definitely take soap. Find out what they'll take. They may take masks. So find out the prison that's in your area, find out how you can help, because they have nothing. And right about this time, it's not the time when you don't want to have anything to help in these days.
Can I say something else, John? I want to just make clear, like this stuff that the three of us are doing, this isn't just feel good stuff. There's a purpose to all of it. There's like close to 2 million people locked up right now in the United States. We incarcerate people, more people than any other country in the world. Most of these people are going to be getting out. They're going to be paroled and they're going to rejoin society. And we're not doing this because we think most of them will be professional actors or professional writers or professors. John mentioned soft skills. I just found out we're not supposed to say that anymore. Life skills. But teaching people how to communicate, teaching people how to work in groups, even like a critiquing memoir is like teaching how to listen respectfully and how to, voice your opinion without being, how to do a proper criticism. All of that stuff, there's no background in it. And they're so important, both inside the institution and if they ever leave. And at our group, I think the recidivism rate is barely measurable as compared to a fairly high recidivism rate in the major, main population. So this isn't an entertainment program for these men and women. This is a rehabilitative program that hopefully will help them. The disciplinary records are better while they're incarcerated, and they do better when they're released. I'm not trying to sell it, I'm trying to explain it.
Right.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
I talked to Catherine last night, Kate, the lady who runs RTA, because I want to make sure I got my numbers right. The recidivism rate in the country, more or less, is between 50 and 60%. The recidivism rate for RTA members post 3 years from exit is 5 to 6%. And arts programs in prisons work, and they have the numbers to prove it. And when you see an article about this stuff, check it out. It's real.
Great that you're able to help and assist them before they get out. So hopefully when they come out, they're better, safer, more involved citizens when they do come out with that self-esteem that you talked about there, John.
John, I have a question.
Yeah, go, Mario.
Just anyone, these programs provide these citizens an escape from their daily lives. And so now under shutdown, what is going on with them? And are you able to reach out to them in any way? Because I'm sure the walls are closing in.
Kate, do you want to do it? You want me to do
Well, just for starters, no, we are not allowed to reach out. Part of our agreement with the Department of Corrections is that we can never write these guys. We can't contact them. We may not have a personal relationship outside of the prison with any of these individuals or their families. We're really scared. We know people have died at Bedford Hills. We know people have died at Sing Sing. We know a lot of correction officers are sick. A lot of inmates are sick. I've been able to do a little remote programming. We started a coronavirus journal program within 5 of the prisons. just so that, these guys have a story that no one else can tell, which is, what does this virus look like inside the prison? And, hand sanitizer is contraband because it has alcohol in it. So just the day-to-day of surviving will be a fascinating story. But getting things in and out, it's hard anyway, right? I mean, John could talk about trying to get props in, but right now it's like a dark hole. I'm extremely worried and feel helpless. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, and the bureaucracy of these correctional institutions is, as you can imagine, it's intense. And as you just said, Kate and John, I can't even imagine getting props in the McDougal Walker, let alone a mailing. But we can make contact, but it's difficult now.
Mhm.
Yeah. Very
Uh,
difficult. Go ahead, John.
They're making it up as they go along. There are programs that are able to be sent, like Kate's program, Kate's writing journal program. I mean, I've talked to students and teachers who are teaching acting and directing online. That's like teaching fly fishing online. I mean, it is.
And otherwise you can get online.
I don't know. They have tablets, but they do not have internet. Maybe in medium and minimum they do. There just was a notice yesterday about trying to find a way to reach inside maximum prisons and be able to do things with screens. They're making it up as everything that can be done right now is being done, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, no tablets in Connecticut, or at least in the northern part of Connecticut.
It'll happen, but it'll be a while.
Yeah, it'll take a while.
Yeah. Great. Any other questions from any other classmates that are online?
So John, it's Glenn. My question for you guys is, do they have a transition program? So how does this then relate to hopefully extending this success into the real world and then allowing them to, I guess you guys can't have a relationship with them, but is there a support system that RTA runs and other programs run to help them make the transition?
There is more and more. RTA is turning more towards transition. And that transition is crucial, and it is one of the most underfunded, and it is criminal, no pun intended, what is going on, because these guys get out. There's programs inside. One's called Exodus, where they prepare when they get within a certain number of months of their release. It is a very scary time. I've taught you, we can have contact with these guys once they're out. There's an alumni meeting, a big, wonderful party at Carnegie Hall, one of the sponsors of RTA, as well as Rockefeller, Ford, Mellon. The Mellon Foundation just put $900,000 on the table, just under $900,000 on the table for RTA. So when they get out, we can help them. We can have contact with them. There are boundaries even then, though, but we can see them. But the transition issues are being addressed more and more every year with RTA, because they realize how crucial they are. That's when people can fall down. They're very well set up by RTA for release, but it is a very much underfunded and under provided service.
Yeah,
Well,
I was just,
and
sorry, go ahead, Todd.
Go ahead.
Go.
Second Chance is a fledgling organization compared to RTA, but that is an aspect of the program that Dr. Corbett's working on. Crucial.
I was just going to add that RTA alumni are a big part of current RTA. I was last week, I was on 2 webcasts that were, that had alumni, people who are out on parole, both men and women, and they're advising us on, what are best practices for remote learning with these guys? What do you suggest we do during this time? And just in general, they constantly give us feedback of what worked and what didn't work. And then the guy I report to, do we report to Charles? John, I think we do.
You to Charles? Yeah, we report to Charles and Joe,
Yes.
I guess.
Yeah, so Charles was an inmate at Sing Sing. So this is also not just this is a real collaboration with people who have been in and people who are now out as well. But we need to know more, Glenn, of what you're talking about.
I don't know if you guys are podcasters, but there's a great podcast called Ear Hustle that's produced at the prison. I'm blanking on it right here in Marin. I can see it when I go on a hike. But you're talking about Sing Sing, so I can't think of it. But it's extraordinary. It was started by a woman journalist who went into the prison, and they got down two guys, and they broadcast from the prison, stories from prison. And now one of the guys is out, and he's still producing it. He works through Center for Investigative Reporting. He's affiliated with them in Berkeley. And the stories are unbelievable about in the prison, about the transition, about the reconciliation with their prior lives. It's really one of the best podcasts that I listen to. So if people are interested in this general area, I'd encourage you to listen to it.
One's image of prison, the place, the building, the culture, that is in many respects as bad as you think it might be. It's the one I go into and the one Kate goes into, it's a nasty, nasty place. It looks nasty, it smells nasty, it feels nasty, built in 1941. But you walk into these rooms, these classes, and we can't say this enough. You walk into these classes and meet these guys. You're not in prison anymore. You walk through the hallway, these nasty hallways, these COs, the guards, the correctional officers, they're looking at you like sometimes like you're just a worm. Some of them are not so happy to see volunteers teaching there. But you walk inside that class and you are in a graduate theater program. You are in a collegiate school. You're in a graduate writing program. And these guys are on it. They are fearless. They are bright. They are totally with it. And they are sopping up every little ounce of everything that we can give them. And they're different. They're different from one week to the next, to the next, to the next. And every cliche you've ever heard about prisoners, pretty much all of them are wrong.
Yeah, I would add to that, John. These education programs, they didn't know that they missed this. It's like the anecdote I read. This quenches the thirst they didn't know they had. And I hope some of them are reading some of this tough stuff so they can explain it to me. Some of these guys are so smart that it boggles the imagination. There's times when I just want to say, here's, you teach this. You obviously have read it more closely than I have. You understand it in ways that people on the outside, you have unique experiences that bring important interpretations of this material. You teach it.
Yeah.
Now I feel the same way about some of the writing I see is the same. It's just, it's so good. The natural talent is just there. And what's so appalling too is like the public schools that a lot of these men go to, it is disgraceful. It's disgraceful how poorly educated people who graduated from high school or graduated from 8th grade or wherever they're at, that this is the kind of schooling that's provided. Because
Yeah, Kate had one of the other anecdote I wanted to tell. I guess this is a good entree. Young guy, 35 years old, and he's been in since he was 15. I thought he said 17. I checked with my director today. No, he's been in since 15. I said, what kind of society puts someone who's 15 in a level 4 or 5 facility? She explained to me what it was like 20 years ago. But his comment was, and this is one of the most soft-spoken, most thoughtful people that I've ever come across, let alone teach in prison. And his point, and I take him at his word, he said, you know what? And he wasn't complaining. It wasn't even a lament. He said, it was just a fact. He was just stating fact. I never had a chance. I realize now after sitting here thinking about it, I never had a chance. Given where I grew up, to your point, given my education, This is where I was destined for. I never had a chance. And again, Kate and John, when you walk out of there, I imagine you feel the same way. It's just humbling. There, but for the grace of God, go we, go I.
Hey,
Absolutely
John.
amazing. Yeah.
Tom here. John and Kate and Todd, do you have a feeling for what proportion of the populations of the prisons where you're working are taking classes like the ones you're involved in? Is it most of? Yeah.
That's a real good question. I do not know. I don't know. There's AVP, alternative to violence programs. There's AA, there's NA. Those are mandated. There is high school that is available to them. There's college that's available to them, 2 years for BARD at Greenhaven. But that's a great question, and I don't have a good answer for it.
Yeah, I know that we're investors in a couple of companies that do work in trying to reduce recidivism, and one of them is actually a company that has curriculum on tablets. But I guess they're not in Connecticut, Todd.
You got to get them up here, Tom.
So there are ways to take course curriculum and other life skills training, but I'm just curious about how accessible it is for
Tom, in Connecticut, it's a fraction. It's a small little fraction. Higher education got taken away many years ago.
Yeah.
We're struggling to get it back.
Kevin,
Can I just say?
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Kate.
Well, I was just going to say, in terms of tablet learning and everything, it's important. But the human connection, I think, is what really makes all these programs work. And I mean, we have men, I have men say to me, you could be home watching TV, and having a pizza, but you're here with us for 4 hours. Like, thank you. I think that people understand their implicit value when you are present. I just feel like that part of the teaching is as important as any information that you're imparting, because you're just there, human being to human being. And believe me, it took them like 30 seconds to get my number. Like, someone wrote a piece of and then this really nervous lady comes in with a hat like, wearing a strawberry shortcake hat, and her eyes are darting all over the room, and you can see how anxious she is. We get to know each other. I mean, we get to know each other, and that, I feel, is where the real learning. I don't mean to sound sentimental, but do you guys know what I mean?
Well, these guys, it's been a long time for a lot of these guys, for someone to say to them, that was good. You are funny. You can sing well. Boy, you memorized all those lines, and you did a real good job with them. That was a great song you sung. Now let's put it all together with all these other people who are making progress, and let's put it into a show. So everyone's going to have a piece. So that collaboration, self-worth on every single, and in every single guy, it is the experience, the look on these guys' faces when they are finished with a show is remarkable. They have traveled light years from when they first came in. And you're right, Kate, it's somebody saying to them, I care for you, and what you did was good.
Oh, almost over.
hey, Kevin, go ahead. Kevin, you had a comment or question?
I just wanted to make a general comment about one of the things that I think we're all learning here, and that is the importance of not just education in general for the citizens of this country, but also how important the arts are, because the arts bring something that is not measurable in some instances in the way that society now likes to measure things. In other words, one of the first programs to go in secondary education is the arts and music. And also, you can't test people in the arts. You can't, give them a multiple choice and say, okay, this is how it goes. Tell me the right answer. There are no right answers, because this is about how you feel and how you present something and how you change people's lives and make them think and laugh and cry. And that's something that we need to focus on, is bringing education back to that kind of foundation, in my opinion. Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox now.
Oh, that's what it's all about. Well, listen, I know I wanted to keep it to an hour. I mean, I think everybody has stayed on this entire time, and that's a tribute to our panelists and also the topic, but also Williams and the class of '78. It's great to see everybody's faces. I feel like at the Hollywood Squares retro.
What a Brady Bunch.
I know.
Peter Unger is my Paul Lynde. I don't know.
So listen, we really appreciate it. The college is going to send out a little survey form. We'd really like any feedback that you have. Obviously, we have 2 programs already scheduled for the next 2 months, but we really want to continue. The class officers already have a list of programs that we want to roll out in the fall on a range of topics. So we're always looking for additional topics, speakers. Hopefully you enjoyed the opportunity to get everybody together. So hopefully it's a good idea. Thanks everybody for thumbs up, and great to see everybody live and in person, and can't wait to see everybody face to face when all this crazy pandemic is over.
Absolutely.
Thank
Very
you.
much.
Well done.
Thanks everybody.
Oh, it's fantastic. Great to see everybody.
Thank you all. Thanks everybody.